morning, but it isn't morning where a lot of you are watching us. So hello again, and good morning here in San Francisco. It still is morning here. Welcome all of you. Thank you for being here today. I want to thank everybody who is still tuning in on ACIM Gather. And now I want to welcome everybody who is watching this video on YouTube. So thank you for watching. Please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you will get a notification every time there's a new video added. And for those of you who might be watching the live stream, woohoo, we're live streaming now on the CMC website. So tune in every Sunday and just click on the little play button at 11 o'clock and you'll connect to the live stream. And then make sure you click on the link below for the Sunday program so that you can look along, read along with the reading, and actually sing along with the songs. All the lyric sheets are there as well. Okay, so it's July 15th. I'm here, and the title of my talk today is The Better Angels of Our Nature. I love that little meme, The Better Angels of Our Nature. Actually, that comes from President Lincoln's first inaugural address. It's actually how he ended the address. And as we all know, President Lincoln was a wonderful orator, a wonderful speech maker, wrote great speeches, delivered great speeches. And they survive today, and they're still seen as inspirational today. So I'm going to read just the last paragraph of President Lincoln's first inaugural address. He gave this in March 1861. He says, "I am loath to close. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break the bonds of affection, the mystic cords of memory, stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone, all over this broad land, will yet swell the chorus of the Union, when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature." Wow. So he was making a big appeal for people just to put on their best selves, listen to the best voice that you have, and just let go of this idea that we could be enemies with these friends, with these brothers. And he was trying, it was just a big appeal to the North and the South to put their animosity down and just connect to the better angels of their nature. And a month later, the Civil War broke out.
So sad.
So it wasn't particularly effective. At least it didn't produce the effect that President Lincoln wanted it to produce. But it survives today, and it's still inspirational today. Now, I first heard this meme, The Better Angels of Our Nature, not from Lincoln's first inaugural, because I wasn't that aware of Lincoln's first inaugural. But it's actually the title of a really interesting book that I have quoted on and off here. And the book is by a wonderful author and sociologist, Steven Pinker. And the book is titled The Better Angels of Our Nature, and it's subtitled Why Violence Has Declined. And Steven Pinker it puts out with a lot of research and a lot of facts that we're living in the most amazingly peaceful time in the history of the species. Yeah. And even though people don't see this or know this, and the conversation is different, if you look at the statistics, they're staggering. There's a staggering amount of peace and nonviolence going on in our society and in our culture, and there's just a lot of data that shows that. And he proceeds then to just show all the data, just how much more violent the average person was subjected to years ago, decades ago, centuries ago, millenniums ago, and you can just plot it, and it's not like a straight line. It's like one of those, it's just there's a drastically less amount of violence on the planet today than there have ever been. And I got that meme in my head, and then I found out it comes from President Lincoln's first inaugural. And then I remembered it when President Trump got elected. And what I said to myself, and I think I said it here once, is that let's hope that when he now is president, that he will rise to the role and to the office, and the better angels of his nature will come forward. I remember saying that, and that was what I put forth out of there, picking it up from Steven Pinker, and picking it up, of course, from President Lincoln. So let's talk a little bit just first about angels. So Reverend Brad read those quotations about angels, and there's 9 of them that I found in the original edition about angels. And, you know, of course, in miracles, you can't say angels is a major teaching of A Course in Miracles, but it is in there 9 times, and that's a fairly substantial amount of times. And they're always talked about positively, and they're always talked about just in the way everybody thinks about angels. These divine, angelic entities. What are they really? I don't know. They come from God. You know, the word itself comes from the word messenger, so they're messengers of God. They come to bless us, to help us. They come to give us light. They come to guard our treasures. And, you know, some people will want to relate to these angels metaphorically. Some people will want to relate to them practically, and it's whatever you like, and I think you can actually do both, but they're beautiful ideas. Here was one: around you angels hover lovingly to keep away all darkened thoughts of sin and keep the light where it has entered. I mean, so they're saying angels hovering all around us lovingly, protecting our light, you know, protecting our grace, protecting our blessing, and just making sure that we always have that light. You know, those are, of course, the better angels. They're the better angels. But they're all around. Now, okay, maybe, you know, some people would argue, well, that's just, you know, a wonderful metaphor. You know, it's probably not really practical. I don't really think there are actual beings around us. And, you know, and I don't know if it really matters, but I'm always willing to go with the Course when the Course makes a statement. And I don't really care. I'll just take it in at the level that it's being made. And so right now I'm going to think about angels hovering around me all over the place. It's great, and they're protecting my light. And then there are other quotes where it's really clear, you can't even take this metaphorically. They're talking about actual entities, beings here, like this one. It says, the atonement actually began long before the crucifixion. Many souls offered their efforts on behalf of the separated ones, but they could not withstand the strength of the attack and had to be brought back. Angels came too, but their protection did not suffice because the separated ones were not interested in peace. So when we all fell into the separation, the souls that did not fall into the separation tried to help us, but we fought them off. And then after we fought the souls off, the angels came and tried to help us. But we were so strong, we just didn't accept their help, and it didn't work. Okay, so, you know, that's it's really difficult to call that quotation a metaphor. I mean, it's talking about events that actually happened. Souls came to try to help us. We fought them off. Angels came, but the strength of our separation and attack was just too strong to take in their help at that moment. And I'm just going to think of it like it's an actual event. It's an actual event. That's what actually happened. And I'm also going to pose, you know, that angels are pretty determined. So just because their first volley into helping us didn't produce the result that maybe we would have hoped, I think they're still around. You know, the angels are still here. They didn't give up on us. They're still here helping us evolve, helping us heal, helping us grow, loving us, loving all that we do, and helping us to create a different world. As A Course in Miracles says, eventually, thank you, as A Course in Miracles says, eventually the real world. Okay, the other thing about angels too to remember that is lots of people believe in angels. Lots of people. Probably more people would say they believe in angels than say they believe in God. So, I mean, you know, people are much more comfortable with angels, and angels cross so many of the world religions. Just about all the world religions believe in some sort of divine, angelic presence, and they believe in angels. And actually, some of the angels have the same names in different religions. So, you know, Gabriel and Michael, those are common in multiple religions. So the idea of angels, it translates cross-culturally. So it's a really good idea. I'm not going to throw it all out just because some people think it's a metaphor. I think it's actually a really good thing to use to connect with other people. Mm-hmm. And I think we could embrace it just a little more in A Course in Miracles. Now, 9 references to angels. They're talked about as if they are real. If you're having trouble communicating about the God stuff, try the angel stuff. You know, maybe that will work. There are angels all around. They've been helping us since the separation. We fought them off for a while, but man, they're really working. They're evolving our society, and they're making us tremendously less violent than we used to be millennia ago. Okay, there's a current myth. I'm going to talk about some of Steven Pinker's research now. There is this myth that in our tribal days, like, you know, we think about like the American Indian culture, or, you know, the hunter-gatherer cultures that didn't really have governments and states, but they were tribal, that this was a wonderful culture, that they were close to the earth, and that they were basically peaceful. This is an absolute myth. It's not true. A lot of these cultures were tremendously violent. Mm-hmm. Tremendously violent. You know, 10,000 years ago, we were all hunter-gatherers. 10,000 years ago, there was no governments and cities and states of those kinds. We were all hunter-gatherers. And by all research and logic, we were incredibly, incredibly violent. And how do they know this? Because they study the hunter-gatherer cultures that still exist on the planet today. And actually, we don't talk about them because we're so hooked into Western civilization, but there are a lot of hunter-gatherer cultures that exist in the whole Amazon River Basin, that exist in New Guinea, and you can go there and research them, and of course they have. And I saw some research, and this is research that Steven Pinker quotes. So they picked 8 different large, long-standing hunter-gatherer cultures. And they did research as to how many of the males especially met with violent death. It died violently at the hands of another, probably male, but another human being. So the Jivaro culture in Peru, they are the most violent. They worship violence. Men aren't allowed to marry and breed until they've killed, you know, usually with hunts, but also killed other people. They're the ones that shrink heads. They're the one, they go on raids to other tribes just so they can get more shrunken heads. They have those poisonous spear darts they hit people, and they are very, very violent. They worship violence. 60% of every male in that culture will die violently at the hands of another person. 60%. Think about that. That is huge. That's huge. Now, the most peaceful of all the hunter-gatherer cultures they could find were the Djibuti, people of Papua New Guinea. Okay? And they still, it was 15%. 15% of all the males of that culture will die violently at the hands of another human being. So you just think about this. So, I mean, they said there was a good spread of the 8, but the most peaceful was still 15%. The least peaceful was 60%. The average was about 37%. So hunter-gatherer cultures, more than 1 in 3 males will die violently at the hands of another human being. So get over this myth that this is this idyllic culture that lived close to the earth and peacefully. Actually, all the evidence shows that the rise of states and governments and cities has been tremendously beneficial for human beings to be more peaceful and understanding and loving with one another. How many people in our culture, in U.S. and Europe, die violently at the hands? Okay, for the entire century of the 20th century, that's all the 1900s, in USA and Europe, and you think 2 huge world wars happened at those times, less than 2% died violently. Amen. So at our worst, when we were killing people in mass, we still were only killing less than 2%. When you got the Jivaro culture, 60%. So we're really pretty peaceful. I mean, even when we're warring, we're pretty peaceful. In the Middle Ages, 100 out of every 100,000 people died by homicide, by being killed. In the year 2001, out of every 100,000 people died by homicide. So that's a 99% reduction in the amount of homicidal deaths between the Middle Ages and the end of the 20th century. And then you also think about torture and mutilation and the painful deaths that were administered as punishment for nonviolent crimes. This wasn't that long ago. You could be put to death if you stole a loaf of bread. It was an offense that it was a capital offense. And you know, pulling people's tongues out, cutting their ears off, gouging their eyes out, cutting their hands off. These were standard punishments not that long ago. We're doing great. The thing is, I mean, that's my message today. We're doing great. There's this cognitive dissonance going on that makes it think, oh, we're living in such violent times and we're at the precipice of an incredible disaster. There's really no evidence to that. I know that's part of the general conversation, and I hear Course in Miracles people talking about that. And I've heard some Course in Miracles teachers talking about that. If we don't do something, you know, well, you know, anything is possible, right? I can't predict the future. But the overwhelming evidence is no. The overwhelming evidence is we are progressing to less and less violence and more peaceful coexistence. And it's actually just this strange, illogical argument that says otherwise. Okay. Just think, you know, even our religions are just so much more peaceful than they used to be.
They're saying a lot.
So, you know, I was one of these people I was listening to quoted the Bible. And he quoted, I was talking to Reverend Brad about this, the book of Numbers, 31. And the book of Numbers is talking about Moses leading the Israelites. So when Moses leads the Israelites, we generally think of Moses as a pretty good guy. He took the Israelites out of slavery, right? He also waged war on their neighbors. And this is from Numbers 31. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites. So 12,000 went into battle. First they killed all the Midianites' kings. Then they killed all the adult men. Then they took all the livestock, and then they burnt all their cities. And then they took all the women and children captive. And then Moses said to them, and this is the quote now from the Bible, Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, children, and kill every woman who hath known man by lying with him. But all the women, children, who have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourself. Kill all the women, kill all the male children, keep the little girls, and rape them at will. Now come on. This is Moses. This is the good book.
Holy Moses.
This is really good. This is religion. These were the Jews. These were the chosen people. This is what we thought God was telling us to do.
Right.
Times are great, everybody. Times are really, really good. So I was reading listening to another lecture, and I really want to thank Eric because he gave me some links on some TED Talks on YouTube. So there's another author who is kind of like Steven Pinker, a little different, a little funnier. His name is Robert Wright, and Robert Wright is a philosopher and a sociologist, and he talks about that there are these things that we do. There's behaviors that we do, and he calls them games. And he talks about how we're playing more and more non-zero sum games. Okay, I know this is a strange little meme. It's called non-zero sum games. He goes, war is a zero-sum game. Somebody wins, somebody loses. You put them together, you get zero. Winner-loser games, zero. In other words, nothing really happens because there's a winner and a loser. But we also have the ability to play non-zero sum games, which means we behave in ways where possibly both parties win. And then there's actual advantage. There's an actual sum. There's an actual positive value. Now, the trouble with non-zero sum games is you actually could both lose. You're not guaranteed both to win, but at least the game is the possibility of you both winning. And he goes, business, commerce, capitalism, it's a non-zero sum game. You both win. You go into business with somebody so that you both can have an advantage. And he goes, think of it. He goes, I'm less likely to think that I want to bomb the Japanese because I like driving my Toyota minivan. And, I'm not going to bomb the people that made my wonderful Toyota minivan. I like them. So it's that globalization, that commerce that's going on. It's a non-zero sum game. And it's actually capitalism as a constructive force. So they make a big pitch and a big, argument for capitalism being a positive force. And he calls it business class morality. There's a business class morality, which is actually evolving the planet in a very positive direction. And better angels of our nature, President Trump kind of has a business class morality. And it might be a good thing in the long run. It might actually bring more people together, because I don't think he wants to fight some of these people, because he wants to do business with them so we can make some money. And so they can make some money. And when I thought, after he got elected, that maybe the better angels of his nature could come forward, well, maybe they are in some way. I watched a little bit of his trip to England and Europe, and he had a nice meeting with the Queen. There seemed to be some good photo ops with that. And then afterwards he met with the British Prime Minister, Theresa May, I believe. And they came out pretty friendly, holding hands. I read the whole text of their press conference. Some people said, oh, he was really rude to her and he attacked her, and in the press of the text conference, I could not pick up any of that. They actually talked about really cooperating together, how they had a very special relationship, and they always would, and there was a lot of positive stuff. They talked about trade and how important it was to have each other as a trading partner. And then he talked towards the end, he was answering some questions about his goal is to denuclearize the planet. And so that's why he's meeting with Putin.
Wow.
Because here's a big nuclear power, and he goes, you want to be friends with these people. You want to denuclearize the planet. And I said, oh, okay. I don't like President Trump, but I can get that he might be playing a non-zero sum game. In other words, a game where you win, I win, Russia wins, we win, North Korea wins, we win. There's a lot of things about him that I may not like, but I'm still going to think that the better angels of his nature are coming forward, because I don't think the angels, when they didn't win that first battle right after the separation, that they went away. They're still here, and look at the good work they're doing. Look at how wonderful we have evolved. That violence is just so drastically reduced that we don't have Moses telling his soldiers to go out and kill everybody except the young virgin girls and then have them at your will. I mean, we're living in tremendously wonderful times. Yes, we got issues, and yes, we got problems, and we can evolve even more. But remember that angels are hovering around us and all about, and they are protecting our light and strengthening it. And I believe in angels.
Amen.
Amen. That's it.
Amen. Oh, no.